Welcome to Goldfish on Games, where today we're looking at Uridium 2, a shooter by Graft Gold that was published by Renegade in 1993, that was only ever released for the Amiga. And in this lovely looking box, the hype starts right away. From the vaults of total playability comes this unique reprise of a classic shoot 'em up, with the back having an extended version of that text, and quite a few quotes from the various magazines, but they did manage to fit a few pictures in there. Inside we get the game on 2 floppy disks, as well as a manual that lets us know that this will run on any 1MB Amiga, which was thankfully common at the time. But what wasn't is the fact that it'll have a few extras if you happen to have an AGA machine. It will also use your extra RAM if you happen to have some. It does a nice job of explaining the various game modes and the backstory to the game, which we really don't need to get into. The other important thing in this box is the copy protection, which might look like a blank page, but there is some very light blue text on here as well, and we will see this in a bit. The game starts with a very fancy title screen, with lots of effects going on in the background, and eventually it will write a name on the screen. The developer really liked to put on a show, even with the fonts, but does this continue in game? Yes, it does, as we start in by warping into the map, and you only have one real objective: to take down this massive dreadnought that you're flying across. But to do this, you'll have to shoot at a lot of things, both on the massive craft itself, but also the smaller ones that are trying to protect it. As according to the story, this is the second armada that has been sent to try and destroy the planets of mankind, and it's up to us to stop it all over again. So this is quite obviously a side-scrolling shooter, but not just a single direction, as when you come to either end of the Doomsday machine, you'll flip around and fly the way you came. Which, as you've seen, is something that you'll need to do. But you've also got a few rates of movement that can be very handy when trying to outmaneuver some of the enemy craft. But all while this is going on, the Dreadnought will be fighting back, with its cannons and its Uridium mines, that it will spawn from mine launchers, and these will chase you down and try and catch you, so you have to try and outrun them, or shoot them if you're very good. The cannons, well, they're easy to take out, as they poke up high enough that you can just shoot them with your regular cannon. The mine launchers, on the other hand, are more of a problem, as they're down on the deck. So with your regular guns, your best bet is to try and shoot a mine just as it's launching, as that will take them both out. But it's not particularly easy, but it's also not the only way, as when you take down enemy waves, they will drop a pickup. It might be as basic as some extra points or even a points multiplier, but it can also be weapons, and there's quite the nice range of them. This includes homing missiles, more powerful lasers, and all sorts of weird and various attacks, which will all be very useful in trying to take down those enemy ships. But you also have a few types of bombs that you can then use to take out objects on the deck of the Dreadnought, and this can obviously be used to take out those mine launchers. But you can also take out the enemy ships that are landed on the deck before they can even launch and be a pain. So all of this makes our Manta craft really quite deadly. And when you cause enough damage, you'll get an alert on the HUD and in your ears. This is your cue to race it to the landing pad, which is typically near the back of the ship, and will have some glowing lights that will help guide you in, although on later levels it might be a little bit more hidden. And on landing, you get out the Manta to warp into the craft itself, with the core being the target. And what you get now is this side-on section, where you have to move around and shoot at the shielding, and then eventually the core itself of the ship. But there will be protections that will try and stop you. Plus, your movement can be a bit of an obstacle, as there's gravity here that will keep pulling you down. And while you can move from one side of the screen to the other, your shots won't. And what they will do is push you around, so you constantly have to fight back against them as well. And when the core is finally destroyed, you will get this lovely risk-reward section, as bonus icons will spawn in. Now just keep an eye on your health during this part, as those falling blocks will hurt, and if you run out of health then you'll lose a life, but when you are done, hold down the fire button and you'll get a warp point that will show up, and then try and fly into it, and then that's one dreadnought down, and many more to take on. But before we can get back into the action, we have something we need to deal with. The copy protection. And they put it here rather than the start of the game. So if you copied the game from a mate, or lost that sheet of codes, well, you get a demo instead. And after looking up the 3-letter code from what is quite a large selection, you have to enter it via the joystick. No keyboard input here. But once we get that out of the way, it's on to the next ship. And what we quickly realise is that this is the core loop of the game. We destroy the fixed emplacements on the deck, we destroy anything else that's flying, we'll keep going until we get the land now prompt, and then we take on the reactor core. And then you repeat it all over again. The game does add a few extras as you go, but never too much to completely change or really shake up the gameplay. Which isn't a bad thing, as that main loop is fun and well done. But if you are expecting it to keep evolving as you go, well, you might be a little bit disappointed. Because what you do get are walls that will start off being just random bits you have to avoid, to a whole layout that you have to navigate, as well as having to fly through some very small gaps. This wouldn't be quite as much of an issue if it wasn't for the fact that the enemy craft just fly over them, and will still shoot at you, so those sections can be quite tricky. What is nice though is the fact that they show up on the radar on the HUD. That not only shows you the basic shape of the dreadnought as well as the walls on it, but it will also let you know about the enemy ships as well as the Uridium mines. That is until some of the later fleets, as there's 6 fleets in total, each with 4 dreadnoughts to take out, so that is quite a lot of content to get through. And some of those later levels, well, they'll have radar jammers, which are on the deck of the ship, so you can restore your radar if you happen to get bombs or torpedoes and can destroy them, or otherwise your radar gets pretty much knocked out. The dreadnoughts also get much larger later on in the game, so moving vertically also becomes quite important. There's also a few that don't have as many targets as you might hope for, so trying to collect the victory tokens that some of the craft drops can be quite useful, as those will speed up that request for a landing. But things are never quite that simple, as they will fly off up the screen, so you have to try and be very quick to collect them. And while it does mean it will speed up your attempt at the core, it still means we have to take that on, which will also get increasingly difficult, as it will get protection that will get far more aggressive, with these snake-like things that will be waving around trying to block your shots. And as you quickly move between the 2 sides of the screen, you have to be very careful to not run into your own bullets. That is quite possible in this game. but there are a few things that will help. First, well, it's not too difficult to get extra lives, as there's tokens that you can collect, or you can rack up a decent number of points. Those points are also useful for the high score table, as that also acts as a save system, as when it records your high score, it will also write down which fleet you had gotten to when you died. And then you can restart from that point, but you can only do that if you go into the options, which to be honest are a little hidden, as you have to hit one of the F keys on the title screen for it to show up. There's no prompts, just a note in the manual. And here you can select the starting fleet. There's also a few other options that can help you, like the various game modes, as you can play co-op with a friend, with one of you effectively controlling the scrolling of the screen, while the other one gets to fly around you, adding extra firepower. That is until player 1 dies, and then player 2 gets to control everything. But there's also a drone mode. That gives you that second player, but it's controlled by the computer. And if you lose your main craft, you'll take over the drone. So it's almost like getting double the number of lives. And if you manage to keep the drone alive till you land, then they'll also come in and help you with the core. But if you really want to make things harder for yourself, and you happen to have an Amiga 1200, then you can activate Mayhem mode. This increases the speed you move at, the number of ships and mines that can be on screen at once, as well as adding a few extra effects to some of the weapons. It's a really nice addition for those that have the AGA chipset, even if it doesn't improve the look of the game all that much. It would also be remiss of me to not mention the soundtrack, which is great as there's lots of music, so it never becomes repetitive, but they've also managed to put sound effects playing at the same time. Which is great for this type of game. And you should also have noticed the amount of speech in the game. Now this is expanded if you have extra RAM, or limited to just a few choice messages if you only have 1 MB of chip. And with that, I think we've come to a fair place to leave this game. It's a fun title that did well with reviewers, but I don't think it really did all that much with the public. Which is a shame, as yes, it's a bit of an 8-bit throwback, at least in regards to gameplay, but it's fun, fast, great looking, and just so enjoyable to play. So if you get the chance to pick it up or give it a go, then you should, as you'll have a lot of fun. But I will say, having a joystick with switchable autofire will really help you out here. And until next time, I was the Goldfish, that was from the archives of Total Playability, and this was Goldfish on Games. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this review of a bit of an overlooked game. If you played this back in the day, then let me know in the comments, I'd love to hear from you. Or you can check out some of my other videos, as I've covered quite a few Amiga games. Or if you particularly enjoyed the video, then you could try shooting the buttons down below with your Manta.